On June 26, 2020, at 03:47 in the morning, the 92-2E gravestone radar of a Russian S-400 battery in Crimea swept the skies as it had done countless times before. 15 minutes later, the entire battery, including its radars, launchers, missiles, and Panzer S-1 close defense units, was in ruins. In just under 4 minutes, Russia lost not only a $500 million defense system, but also its aura of invincibility. The weapons responsible were not stealth bombers, cruise missiles, or hypersonic projectiles. They were 17 domestically produced Ukrainian drones, a mix of UJ-26, Beaver, and AQ-400 Scythe kamikaze systems. The entire swarm cost less than $500,000. The S-400 battery, supposedly untouchable, was reduced to scrap by drones built from plywood, powered by small civilian engines, and guided by chips no more expensive than a smartphone. The UJ-26 Beaver represents Ukraine's attempt to field a long-range, precise strike drone. With a fuel consumption of just 12 liters per hour, no more than a scooter, it can stay airborne for hours, covering hundreds of kilometers. It carries a 20-kilogram shape-charged warhead, specifically engineered to punch through steel armor and fry sensitive radar electronics. In swarm formations, Beavers usually lead the way. Their role is to locate, designate, and strike high-value targets. Against the Crimea S-400 battery, they were the first to dive onto the Gravestone and Big Bird radars. Once those eyes were gone, the S-400 was blind, its missiles useless, its operators paralyzed. If the Beaver is the scalpel, the AQ-400 Scythe is the hammer. Constructed largely from plywood and assembled in former furniture workshops, each unit costs about $45,000, $15,000 for the frame and motor, another $30,000 for guidance systems. Despite its simplicity, it can carry a 32-kilogram warhead and travel over 300 kilometers. The Scythe's power lies in scale. One drone can be stopped. 10, 20, or 50 cannot. By saturating defenses, Scythes force expensive missile systems like Panzer and S-400 to waste ammunition or face complete overload. In Crimea, they form the bulk of the strike group, following behind the Beavers to ensure critical damage. Since 2022, Crimea has been saturated with Russian electronic warfare. GPS signals are jammed across vast areas. Ukraine's answer was a triple redundant navigation system. Commercial GPS chips costing as little as $12 from Chinese marketplaces. Inertial navigation, IMU, with accelerometers and gyroscopes to track movement in dead reckoning. Optical navigation using cameras to compare real terrain with preloaded satellite imagery. This combination meant that even when satellites were jammed, the drones could see the Earth and continue toward their targets. It was a simple but brilliant solution. Russia could jam satellites, but it could not jam eyeballs. The biggest advantage drones exploited was physics. Radars can see for hundreds of kilometers, but only above the horizon. At 50 meters altitude, the Earth's curvature limited detection to about 25 kilometers. The Ukrainian swarm approached low and wide, a 3-kilometer front splitting into 3 altitude bands. High group at 80 meters, dove at steep angles, accelerating closure rates. Mid group at 50 meters stayed steady, absorbing attention. Low group at 30 meters hugged terrain, slipping beneath radar locks. This tactic, called a vertical spread, forced Russian operators to divide attention and slowed their targeting cycles. 2 Panzer S-1 units stood between the swarm and the S-400. Each could handle perhaps 3 or 4 targets at once. Against 17, the math was hopeless. From 5 kilometers out, the drones had 98 seconds before impact. Panzer engagement required about 12 seconds per target. Acquisition, launch, flight time, and kill assessment. 17 drones would need more than 200 seconds to counter. They had less than half that. Both Panzers fired off 24 missiles, destroying 5 drones. But reloading took 5 minutes. With just over a minute left, they had no missiles left to fire. Switching to 30mm cannons, they tried to hit the incoming targets, but statistics were cruel. Firing at small drones closing at 48 ms was, as one analyst put it, like trying to swat mosquitoes with a sniper rifle. Desperate, the S-400 battery launched 2 long-range 48N6E missiles, each worth $1.5 million. Without gravestone radar locks, they flew blind, unable to acquire. Both self-destructed harmlessly in the sky. This highlighted a critical vulnerability. The S-400's missiles were entirely dependent on their radars. Once the eyes were blinded, the arms flailed in darkness. The final seconds, 04:47 a.m. With the Panzers empty and the S-400 radars compromised, the remaining 12 drones struck almost simultaneously. A Beaver plunged into the 92N2E gravestone radar, its shaped charge jet punching through casings, burning out waveguides and frying transmitter modules. The radar dish itself collapsed in seconds. Another Beaver and multiple Scythes tore into the 91N6E Big Bird radar, collapsing the massive 40-ton structure like a toppled tower. One Scythe slammed into a 5P-85, detonating inside a missile tube. The explosion ignited 3 adjacent missiles, each filled with hundreds of kilograms of propellant. In an instant, the launcher became the most expensive fireworks display in Crimea. By 04:50, the entire S-400 battery was destroyed. The disparity was stunning. Ukraine's cost, 17 drones, were $425,000. Russia's loss, S-400 battery with radars, 16 missiles, launchers, and Panzers, $500,000. A ratio of 1.1170. Every drone paid for itself 1,000-fold. For military economists, this was a nightmare scenario. The economics of war had shifted dramatically. The destruction of the Crimea battery carried consequences far beyond the battlefield. For Russian operators, the message was devastating. Every time they powered on a radar, they risked announcing their position to swarms of drones lurking just beyond the horizon. Pilots scrambled from Belbek Air Base arrived too late, circling only to photograph the wreckage. For Russia's propaganda machine, the loss was humiliating. The S-400 had been marketed for years as invincible, capable of downing stealth jets and hypersonic missiles. Now the world saw it shredded by plywood drones with engines resembling lawnmowers. For Ukraine, the victory was validation. They could design and build long-range strike systems domestically, no longer relying entirely on Western-supplied weapons. Politically, it was a signal to allies and adversaries alike that creativity could substitute for scale. June 26, 2025. The destruction of the Crimea S-400 battery was more than a tactical strike. It was a revolution in warfare. 17 drones costing less than $500,000 dismantled one of the world's most advanced air defense systems in under 4 minutes. The implications are staggering. Modern war is no longer a contest of who has the most money, but who has the most imagination. The UJ-26 Beaver and AQ-400 Scythe are not just Ukrainian drones. They are symbols of a new era where low-cost, high-impact weapons redefine the balance of power. As the smoke cleared over Crimea that June morning, one truth became undeniable. Warfare has changed forever.